In this video we are going to take a closer look at the named kill team of the Deathwatch and how it plays in 10th edition. That's right guys, you didn't think that I would forget about our controversial Kill Team Cassius when doing a Kill Team series. In the first part, we will go through all the relevant rules and datasheets available to this kill team. In the second part, we will then look at how to potentially use it in 10th edition. Lastly, there will be some modeling recommendations and a quick wrap up of what has been covered. This is the bonus episode of my kill team series, with each episode covering one of the different kill teams available to the Deathwatch.
Welcome to SwissHammer, your channel for modeling in Warhammer 40k. My name is Tammer, and I will be guiding you through this video.
Kill Team Cassius is very different from any of the other kill teams available to the Deathwatch because its unit composition, war gear and even the leader is set in stone. This is because this kill team can be purchased as a separate box, including all the required models, and it was originally introduced in the Deathwatch Overkill board game, where the Deathwatch is fighting the Wild Genes dealer. Back in 9th edition, this kill team was considered to be a bit of a meme, mostly because even though it had quite terrible rules overall, it kept popping up during battle reports of hobby channels doing very casual games. As a result, even though the Deathwatch community as a whole was largely in agreement that the kit itself contains very beautiful models for Space Marine standards, it never really got picked up by the more competitive parts of the community, and that for a reason. But anyway, with this little introduction out of the way, let's take a look at its datasheet in 10th edition. The first big change is the unit composition. While it used to be 9 odd models back in 9th edition, they now demoted former Codicier Natorian to a regular Deathwatch veteran, bringing them up to a total of 8, plus then the Deathwatch Terminator and the veteran biker, resulting in a full kill team of 10 models. Furthermore, the kill team gets Chaplain Cassius attached as its leader. This is quite a neat way to make the entire content of the box playable. Looking at the war gear, this was actually the downfall of the kill team back in 9th edition. Far too many different loadouts. Not only were these suboptimal, but it also took forever to make the actual dice rolls for it. Fortunately, in 10th edition, the streamlining of multiple weapons plays in favor of Kill Team Cassius, most notably so due to the introduction of the long witch-hill weapons. While there is still quite a bit of a mix in war gear, there is a fair bunch of long witch-hill weapons, resulting in not only less dice rolls, but also a fair damage increase when compared to what they used to have back in 9th edition. On the flip side of things, and this really didn't change, they don't have any Astartes shields whatsoever, but this is of course because the actual box does not include any. With the unit composition and war gear out of the way, moving on to the actual stats. What clearly stands out here, when compared to the other kill team, is that Kill Team Cassius comes with an OC value of 2. This basically puts them at the battle line efficiency for holding objectives, which I wish every other kill team would have as well. Furthermore, Kill Team Cassius does of course have the kill team keyword, and they get the ability to deep strike. Chaplain Cassius himself brings along Catechism of Death as an ability, meaning for as long as he is alive, every melee weapon in this kill team has devastating wounds, which is actually very powerful, and easily compensates for some of the suboptimal melee loadouts of this kill team. Thanks to unflinching, they can also reroll battle shock or leadership tests. Furthermore, even though former Codicier Natorian got demoted to regular veteran, his psychic hood grants the entire unit a 4+ feel no pain against psychic attacks, which is once more pretty good value overall. Then last but not least, both Chaplain Cassius and the Terminator also get to keep their 4+ invul save, but the rules are pretty clear here and there will be no more cheesing when it comes to applying this one to other models instead. As far as the individual weapons go, a quick note here that the latest update of the index cards fixed a few errors, such as the heavy flamer of the Terminator going up to its intended strength of 5. Overall, I would say that they have received a whole bunch of improvements, both in raw power as well as making them more accessible for playing. With the basic rules out of the way, how can we best make use of Kill Team Cassius in 10th edition? Well, I think the main question here is whether it is worth running them over Deathwatch veterans, which also happen to have the Kill Team keyword, or one of the other Kill Teams. Purely from a points perspective, as I'm making this video, Kill Team Cassius comes at 255 points, which is a 15% discount when compared to running an equivalent of these models, with somewhat different rules however, and roughly a 6% discount when compared to 10 Deathwatch veterans and the Chaplain, but then again, personally I would not be running the regular Chaplain over some of the other leader options anyway. As it happens, 10 Deathwatch veterans plus an Inquisitor come in at the exact same price, and they certainly are a potent combo on their own. As such, I would argue that Kill Team Cassius is priced competitively, but there needs to be a good reason to bring it over the alternatives, most noticeably so the previously mentioned squad of Deathwatch veterans. While devastating wounds on all melee weapon is certainly quite solid, Deathwatch veterans loaded with 4 Deathwatch Thunder Hammers, a Xenophase Blade and a bunch of long Witchel melee weapons are easily keeping up with that. I think the main challenge now for Kill Team Cassius is not necessarily its rules, but rather that its closest contender, the Deathwatch veterans, are incredibly good. From a purely competitive perspective, I would still go with the veterans, and I don't mind overpaying by 25 points for a captain, at which point I potentially get to teleport around for free, plus get an additional melee output that surpasses that of Chaplain Cassius and his extra ability. Having said that, however, in a more casual setting, I think Kill Team Cassius has become perfectly viable, even though we will still be rolling a few too many different weapon profiles for my own liking, but I think it's far away from being as bad as it used to be. Thanks to their default deep strike ability, I think I would try to deploy them like that and use them to grab objectives where both their OC value of 2 as well as their melee output will come in handy. Just like with the 9th edition version of the Proteus Kill Team, the Biker and the Jump Packs can give them a much needed movement boost, which also compensates for the one slow Terminator model. All in all, I think that Kill Team Cassius is almost there, certainly the closest that it has ever been, and I would not discourage anyone from giving it a shot these days. Then last but not least, let's have a look at some modeling recommendations. Bad news first, because pretty much every model is unique, there will be quite some cutting work for what is about to come, and yes, you guessed it, that's magnets. Why? Well, because ultimately, the Kill Team Cassius models are one of the best looking Deathwatch veterans that you can get at this point. I think what quite a few players did back in 9th edition, me among them, was using them as regular Deathwatch veterans, but for that you want of course to be able to flexibly change their loadouts. As I mentioned during the rules part, some of their weapon options are still quite suboptimal. By magnetizing all their weapon arms, we can use them as both regular Deathwatch veterans and also as the original Kill Team Cassius for anyone willing to give it a go. For Chaplain Cassius himself, I also magnetize his backpack to be able to play him as a regular jump pack chaplain, which might have become a bit less relevant now in 10th edition and the new attaching character rules, but personally I just like to keep my models as future-proof as possible. To wrap things up, over the course of the video, we have looked at the Kill Team Cassius of the Deathwatch in 10th edition. While it used to be somewhat of a meme in 9th edition, the good news is that it received significant improvements across the board in 10th. Starting with the unit composition, it now contains 8 Deathwatch veterans thanks to Codicier Natorian getting demoted, a single Terminator, a single veteran biker, and then Chaplain Cassius himself as an already attached leader. What further stands out is that many of the weapons got streamlined, with the introduction of the long vigil weapons, which hugely works in favor of making this kill team playable. Chaplain Cassius also unlocks devastating wounds for all melee weapons in this kill team, giving it some solid output, even though the overall loadouts are still somewhat suboptimal. While certainly competitive from a points perspective, I think the biggest challenge is finding a reason to take them over our kill team alternatives, most noticeably the Deathwatch veterans, which come with strong rules, an excellent price tag, and of course the kill team keyword. As I previously mentioned, I think what primarily holds Kill Team Cassius back is not its own rules, but the fact that Deathwatch veterans are this good. Having said that, however, I think Kill Team Cassius has become a perfectly viable pick for more casual play, and that's a huge improvement when compared to 9th edition. Then lastly, as always, I highly recommend magnetizing the loadouts on all the models involved, which will require a fair bit of cutting work, but the models themselves count among the best looking ones for the Deathwatch, and they can easily be used as regular Deathwatch veterans. So that's it for the guide to Kill Team Cassius of the Deathwatch in 10th edition. What do you guys think about our named kill team, and are you planning to include it into your current lists? Did GW improve it enough to make it viable? Any important rules or tactics that I missed? Let me know in the comments. Then finally, if you made it this far and I still have your attention, if you like my content, any additional support is greatly appreciated, as it helps me invest into future videos. For that, I have both a Ko-fi as well as a Patreon page, links are in the description. Furthermore, I would also like to mention that there is a SwissHammer Facebook page where I will be posting links to my videos as well as articles I find of interest. I do read a lot about the hobby, but not all of it will always end up as its own video. I look forward to seeing you there as well. As always, thank you very much for watching, guys. Your continued support is greatly appreciated. I hope you have been enjoying this video, give me a thumbs up if you did, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks again and see you next time.